Assetto Corsa Evo has been all the talk around the sim racing community, and since Kunos has a very good track record, I'm sure they will create a very competent game. However, there are a few factors which I believe Kunos can't control all that well that could lead to the game's demise and make me rather worried about Assetto Corsa Evo's future. Let's talk about that and really explain how it could affect Assetto Corsa Evo's future and potentially the entire Assetto Corsa franchise. So here I am in vanilla, stock, unmodded Assetto Corsa for probably the first time in years, maybe. First of all, do forgive my rather poor driving. I haven't been on Assetto Corsa in a while, and I don't think I've hardly ever driven this car. Of course, we have Assetto Corsa, the one that I'm playing right now. You know, one of the first big sim racing games that really had a, you know, if someone says sim racing, this is probably the first game that you think of. It's got some of the best physics on the market. The modding community is massive, without a doubt the biggest of any sim racer on the market at the moment. Some people have added, you know, just insane, like, basically turning it into a different game with things like no Hesse, and I forget what it's called, but there's this mod that, like, you can basically turn Assetto Corsa into Gran Turismo with, like, the whole career mode and everything. You know, whenever it comes to Assetto Corsa Evo, we don't really know what it's going to be like. We don't know if it's going to be nothing like Assetto Corsa. We don't know if it's going to be, you know, a completely new game, basically just with the Assetto Corsa just slapped onto it, like how Assetto Corsa Competizione kind of was. But what worries me, truly, what really worries me about the simulator is, one, the community, and two, how are the physics going to turn out? Because, first off, they're building an engine completely from scratch. Now, I do not doubt Kunos' ability to create fantastic physics. However, whenever you're creating an entire new physics engine from the ground up, you know, there's a lot of little places where you could just make a minor mistake in the coding in the early stages, you know, and, you know, the rest of it's just, it just doesn't feel like, you know, how you want it to. I believe Assetto Corsa runs on its own, you know, completely different physics engine that no other game runs on except for Assetto Corsa Competizione. But then they've got to redo that all over again, and if they... We've seen what happened with the Madness engine that runs with Project Cars 2 and Automobilista 2. I mean, eventually Automobilista 2 was able to make some sense of it, but it's still very funky, and it's probably, you know, something early in the development cycle that they just couldn't nail down, and it ended up just affecting the whole way that the physics, you know, handles and performs. I'm no programmer, but it's definitely hard to build a physics engine from the ground up, and you're really putting yourself at risk for something to go wrong, something catastrophic, and then you'll either have to just completely redo it, or you're just gonna have to release a game with physics that you might not quite have wanted to be in the game. And then there's the community, because, you know, there's always going to be that risk of bad physics in a game. It's just what it is. You have to worry about that with every sim racing title. But one thing that really specifically worries about me, that's a little bit more unique to Assetto Corsa, is the community. Because, you know, Assetto Corsa was just so based on mods, so it's like, if mods weren't as popular for Assetto Corsa as they really are, then it just wouldn't be the same game that we know today, and it might be dead already by now. You know, there might be like 5 players playing right now instead of probably hundreds, maybe thousands. Now, the thing is, well, Oliver, what's the big deal? Yeah, we've seen Assetto Corsa Evo as you know, they've planned on making it easier to mod the game. They've planned on having extra resources and being able to, you know, block people from stealing other people's assets into other mods, which is amazing if they tackle that problem of, you know, because that's just a huge problem in the Assetto Corsa modding community, stealing other assets from other mods and putting them into your own. That's a big no-no. people frown upon it, but people still do it all the time, and they still get business. Is the modding community really interested in integrating into a whole new game when they already have Assetto Corsa ready in their hands? I mean, just really think about it. There's tons of projects which are just gonna need to be completely redone. Raicing Studio is going to have just a completely... I think my foot was on the brake there. They're just gonna have to have a completely new lineup just for Assetto Corsa Evo content. And, you know, things like No Hesi, they're gonna have to redesign the whole thing just for Assetto Corsa Evo. And even though they say, you know, we've integrated this new creative way to integrate mods that could protect modders and things like that, well, do we really know if it's going to be easier? I mean, they say that, but is it? I mean, we can't always trust the developers until we really see the product that they say that they're giving us, because even though they say, you know, we're going to have such better modding support in this game, maybe, you know, it's going to be different. I don't doubt that, but is it going to be better? And we have things like, it's just a much more complicated game, obviously, because of, we've got, you know, it's a modern game. It doesn't have that kind of flexibility whenever it comes to modding that older games have. You know, can we even see things like, you know, I was talking about that one, like, Gran Turismo career mode earlier, where it's basically its own, like, launcher for Assetto Corsa with all these cool little details and stuff. Could we integrate something like that with something that has, you know, such modern technology whenever it comes to gaming? I'm not sure. I'm not a programmer, but I think it's definitely something that's harder to do with something, you know, a lot more complicated and newer. So, you know, without a doubt, we'll be able to add, you know, cars and tracks and stuff like that into the new Assetto Corsa. I don't doubt that. But Assetto Corsa modding goes much deeper than just cars and tracks, unlike how it does in a lot of other simulators. And, you know, are we really going to see that same level of freedom in Assetto Corsa Evo that we do see in Assetto Corsa? We don't know that yet, as we completely lock up the brakes there. The community has already put so much time and resources into modding and making this one game perfect and turning it into the vision that they saw for it. And then we're gonna have this whole new sequel to the game that, you know, people are going to need to rebuild. And are they willing to do that for a possibly brighter future, or are people just going to stick to the same game even if, you know, maybe it has less potential? And you know what, maybe Assetto Corsa Evo, maybe we don't even have to think about this. Maybe we don't even have to think about the community and modding stuff. Maybe it'll just suck anyway, and people will just stick to Assetto Corsa no matter what, which I doubt will happen because, as I said, Kunos are a great developer. But you know, it's a possibility that we have to consider. And then, you know, there's the other possibility, as I said, that Assetto Corsa Evo isn't just Assetto Corsa 2, it's something different. Maybe it has a more in-depth career mode, maybe it has something special to make it not just Assetto Corsa 2. I mean, it's probably gonna have everything that Assetto Corsa has, maybe a bit better, but is it going to have an extra layer on top of it that separates it from Assetto Corsa? Because I think that would pretty much guarantee the game's success if it has just something that Assetto Corsa just couldn't have, because, you know, it's just a different game. Because if we take a look at Assetto Corsa Competizione, if it was literally just a copy and paste Assetto Corsa but with only GT cars, then people would just say, well, let's just mod GT cars into Assetto Corsa, and then we already have Assetto Corsa Competizione. But no, it's something completely different. The online system's way different. The physics are, in my opinion, they're not really that much better, but in a lot of people's opinion, they are. you know, it's a completely different game. And obviously, because Assetto Corsa Evo is a sequel to Assetto Corsa, it can't stray too far off the path. But what if it just has some big feature that, you know, just completely separates it and really makes it worth the worth the switch over from the original Assetto Corsa? It's, you know, it could get really messy with the release of Assetto Corsa Evo in terms of the split in the community. Is Assetto Corsa, the original Assetto Corsa, is it going to be abandoned? We don't know. Is there, you know, are people still going to make mods for it if the community just completely switches over to Assetto Corsa Evo? I mean, I'm counting on some player base still for Assetto Corsa, because, you know, it's just such a legend. I mean, in a sense, AMS2 is a sequel to Project Cars 2, and even though it's not for sale anymore, the people that have already bought Project Cars 2, some people are still playing it. Even though it's 90% of people would say that it's just objectively worse than Autolissa 2. So it could get really weird, the sim racing shift, because also a huge player base of sim racing is completely focused around Assetto Corsa. Yeah, no Hesse is probably like 20% of the player base. So if the original Assetto Corsa is abandoned and the Assetto Corsa Evo doesn't have quite the same versatility as the original Assetto Corsa, then we could see a huge drop in the total player base for sim racing, which could be disastrous. So, you know, it really shows you how much influence the Assetto Corsa franchise has on sim racing, just because of how much of an icon it is in the sim racing world. And it could come out positively for sim racing 100%, but it could also come out completely disastrous. Of course, I'm hoping for the better option, but we never know what we're gonna get out of this. But that, you know, that pretty much ends up the video. Thank you for listening to my, you know, little rampage about Assetto Corsa. I really hope the best for this game. I hope it turns out amazing, and I think there is a higher possibility that everything's gonna go out well, just because of how much of a good developer Kunos is. But we never know. So if you'll enjoy the video, make sure to like and/or subscribe. And if you would like to support the channel further, check out the links in the description. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.